3000.
What is doing? My name's Maloney. This is the 3000 podcast. I'm joined today by an MC, a rapper, an MC, a master of ceremony.
A master of ceremonies, a rapper.
I'm joined by MC Wasp. Thanks for coming, man.
No, thanks for having me, man. Pleasure.
You smashed that that rap you did first take. That was very impressive. I love it, and I love it when MCs come in and they do it and they get it out of the way and we can get to the chat, man.
That's it. That's it. Smash it out. Have a beer. Do the thing.
A beer or two.
Or two. I'm driving, so just two.
Just two. So let's break it down. Whereabouts did you grow up, and how did a young dude become interested in MCing like you did?
So I grew up Melbourne, Oakley, of the 3000s, 3166. Originally East Bentley, about 2 blocks away from Dietz, who people can't see but is over there taking photos.
He's over there.
Yeah. Grew up in Oakley, southeast Melbourne, and still live about 5 minutes down the road. The furthest away that I've ever lived from Oakley is Chapel Street, like Prahran, Windsor area.
Yep. Which is 10 minutes down the Princess Freeway.
Yeah, exactly right. So, yeah, I've lived in a small area most of my life and, yeah, love it.
Good souvlaki out there, man.
Yeah, really good souvlaki. That's it. You know, tried to get Jay Red down the other day and he just wouldn't come. It's just too much lamb, man. He's like, nah, it's dangerous. Can't go there. Can't go to Oakley.
Man, Oakley, it is a good spot, and it has changed a little bit over the years. It's a different sort of spot now. It's the word gentrification gets thrown around a bit, but it has changed a lot. It's still got a very deep Greek sort of heritage.
Yeah, it does. It still does. I mean, we were there the other day shooting a video and, just seeing how the mall has changed and how the station has changed and all that. Like, wanted to shoot down there to capture some of that. And it's just like, yeah, it really has changed a lot, man. But it's still kept a lot of its personality, or whatever you want to call it. Like
authenticity?
Yeah, I think so. And there's still some spots that are still there. It's still the Oakley that I grew up in, but the houses are a lot more expensive now.
Did you ever think you'd see the old heads stop smoking in the mall there? I never thought that would actually happen, but they managed to do it, didn't they?
Yeah, man. It's still the only thing that still happens there is the pigeons just shit everywhere, and that's it. Like, it's still, yeah, But, yeah, man, to that degree it has changed, and I think the vibe is, I don't know how much of that is being older and not sort of being intimidated by the things that go on, or, when you're a kid and you sort of see the cool kids hanging out and they're smoking ciggies and people might be having a go at you as you're going past in your school uniform or something like that. And I think, to a degree, it's intimidating, but that's probably not there as much as me. I don't know. I'm not hanging out there after school, so I got no idea what's going on there. I don't know.
Yeah, man. I grew up in an area with a lot of Greek people, Port Melbourne. A lot of Greeks. A lot of my friends were Greek. Yep. I was they call me the cornflake kid, the can eater.
I was about to say the can.
The can eater, right? They call me that. But then from there was a lot of Greeks there.
Yep.
Because our school on the weekend was Greek school, so everyone would come to our school.
But right, at your actual primary school or whatever?
No, at the high school.
Yeah.
That was Greek school there.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of, a big Greek community. But we'd hear about the Oakley Wogs, man. Was that a real thing?
It was a real thing, yeah. It was a real thing. And the Bentley boys. And, I not really involved in that, but just growing up in that area and, you have friends that are involved in that sort of stuff, So, yeah, man, it definitely was a thing. And definitely if it happened today, it'd be all over fucking Channel 7, man. Like, Channel 7 would be having an absolute field day with it, and it would just be the most scariest thing in the world, and people would be...
Ethnic minority rampages streets with... Yeah,
they would just take it and run. Like, they'd have a great time. But I think, to a degree, like, not having that sort of exposure on things like that, just a different media landscape or whatever you want to call it, and... No mobile phones to record people chasing people down the street with machetes and shit like that, which happened, but it's not like that was your everyday. It's not like you couldn't walk down to the shop or get smashed with a chain, Like,
it was happening in every area.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So where did a kid growing up in Oakley find hip hop or MCing, what? Because you do the hip hop stuff, but your MCing varies from what genre you sort of spitting on as well.
Yeah, exactly, man. So I'll spit majoritively drum and bass, hip hop, and yeah, just Balkan beats and various electronic shit. Really, like back in the day, a little bit of breaks and dubstep, dub, whatever, and lots of stuff. So I think I found hip hop.
Because that's really where it all comes back to from an MC perspective.
For me, yeah, it started with
anyway,
hip hop, yeah. And I think I wasn't even really necessarily considered myself a hip hop fan until I was probably 12 or 13, and just sort of people starting to question your music choice, And he would have been one of the first people, man. Dietz, I keep pointing to him, he's here. He
is here.
He is here. There are other people here, but I think, it was sort of, it was more people sort of saying to me, just like, oh, hey, man, here's a track, like, you love all these hip-hop tracks, and then you're just sort of like, yeah, well, I guess most of the songs I do like just are hip-hop, Like, I wouldn't call myself necessarily a hip-hop fan. Like, I'm not someone who enjoys all of it, but there's just specific artists that resonate with me, and specific styles of music and content that really does resonate with me, and whatever that is, I'm a fan of that artist more than perhaps the actual style of music. So
you don't want to pigeonhole yourself into a genre.
No, exactly right. But I think a lot of it, it probably like hip hop will be one that really does catch my ear. And I think starting out, just things like Ice-T and what they call 2 Live Crew or whatever it was, just people just spitting shit that to a 10-year-old is hilarious. Like just lots of rude words, talking about sex and titties and stuff like that. You're just like, you get a copy of it on tape and you're just like, this is hilarious.
And the spoken word aspect with some humor and with some aggression, you're like, this speaks to me.
Yeah, exactly right. That's exactly right.
And I can do it myself because I'm hearing these dudes do it.
Yeah, I think that just was natural though. So my family, like my dad was a singer. And sort of had his own music career and stuff like that going on.
What kind of music?
So he sang a lot of probably what would be considered like jazz standards, and pop songs sort of in the 60s and that. So there was a TV show called, I don't think it was Bandstand, it was something else. I don't know. He's going to kill me for not remembering the name of the TV show he's on.
But there was musical influences in the house.
Yeah, exactly right. So the musical influences in the house, and so it was just natural, It was definitely, Dad was someone who, he can play multiple instruments, really good singing voice, but not someone who was like, I'm ever going to teach you how to do music. Okay. He was just someone who was like, I will expose you to this, and if you want to do it, that's heavily encouraged.
That's the best way to do it, man.
It is to a degree, you find your own way. And so you just like, as a kid, like just sort of like, here's a couple of congas and just sort of like teach them how to play, make a noise on it and enjoy it. Here's we had a piano in the house. We had a guitar in the house, a bass guitar, keyboards and stuff when keyboards were young, like an old Roland JV80.
Was he a professional musician?
Yeah.
So that was it. That was his full-time gig.
That was his full-time gig until my older sister was born. And then he started making fish tanks, but was working, as literally as a wedding singer, Adam Sandler style. Had his own band, so the Mark Davis Band.
Because at that time you would have had definitely, like now you have a wedding DJ and you do have wedding bands, but you got to think in that era, the wedding bands were a thing because the DJs weren't necessarily, the mobile DJs weren't really much of a thing.
The wedding band was the DJ, so it's like literally like, can you learn this song for us? Which happens today, but so a lot of that.
On a lesser extent.
Yeah. So, just exposed to a bit of that and, a musical family in general. My mum's side of the family is pretty artistic as well, though mum's not. She's into sport. But, she's a country Tassie girl, but, it's... yeah, man, like it was very natural to perform and to do music and just not something that I probably ever consciously chose or thought about as not normal.
Yep. It was just there.
Yeah, like I don't remember the first time I got on stage. No idea. It would have been 3 or 4 years old. Maybe not 3, maybe like 4 or 5 years old, So I just don't remember that. I have no idea what it is. And, you know, was always in school musicals and stuff like that. Like just, hey, do you want to do this? Yeah, okay, cool. Do that. And you get like the lead role in something that's like, you know, grade 6 kids and you're like in grade 2, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
So it was just, it's how things just happened, you know?
So was your dad, did he get hip hop? Did he get the rapping stuff? Or was he just more, he's like, yeah, singing musical instruments? Or did he understand that kind of?
Don't understand it. But to be fair, like he was someone who probably his parents didn't understand as well. So I think he was just like, you do you. It's all cool. Mum didn't like the rude words, but at the same time, like to her, that was paddock talk, you know, like, you know, not in the house. But yeah, so, you know, that was all cool. And I mean, you know, I mean, that track that I spat before, you know, I don't want to be talking about lots of stuff, but Dad's singing on that. He sings on tracks nowadays and he's involved. So, yeah, he nowadays is involved in it and likes to put his own spin on shit. And, you know, it can take an hour to get him to sing what I actually want him to sing. Because he's like, what if we jazzed it up a little bit? It's like, yeah, man, like we can do that in your own time. Like we can do that on the weekend. Right now we're trying to like finish off a track. Like we got a gig to do and I just need you to sing this bit for me, please. And then we can spend an hour doing the remix.
Did he have the recording equipment there for you to use as well? Or was it just instruments and that sort of thing?
Yeah, to a degree. So it was an all 4-track Tascam, I think, whatever the brand was, an all 4-track thing that literally sort of played so on both sides of the tape. So you've got left, right for both sides of a tape. We've got side A and B. So that's a 4-track if you play them all the same way, right?
And you can play them both at once.
Heads. Yeah. So it's like a piece of tape, like an old cassette, just has 4 tracks on it.
Yeah.
There's left and right going one way, and there's left and right going the other way. And that's when you flip it around, right? So you get stereo sound. So most cassette tapes just have a head that plays left and right, but a 4-track has 4 heads.
Genius.
Yeah, makes sense when you say it out loud. So, yeah, so just that and using Dad's old gear and the stuff that I had.
You obviously had microphones lying around.
Microphones just lying around.
So, and which is something that a lot of budding MCs don't have.
They don't have, and if you want me to get on my soapbox, I will just say, like, dude, like, if you're spending money on a fancy fucking pair of shoes for your gig, just spend $150 and get a Shure SM58. Just do it.
Yep.
Spend another $20 and get an XLR to XLR, and then when you have another $20, which I know you have because you're buying a pint of beer, just get an XLR to mini jack or to jack, and then you need to have these things. Yep. But going back to it, yeah, so there was just audio gear in the house lying around, really.
Which is a great luxury.
It's a massive luxury, but it also ties into, you know, what I was saying. It was never a conscious decision. It was almost just preordained. Like it was just going to happen. Like just if natural. I had any inclination towards it, it was there to do it. And so I'm eternally grateful for that because without it, I'd probably be a very frustrated person. You know?
And that is one thing, man. Like it is like graffiti, like a lot of different art forms. It lets people just express themselves and probably put some negative emotions and negative energy into something sort of positive. So you're lucky, man. You had all that stuff at your disposal.
Yeah, man. And, you know, sort of going back to what you're saying about like the energy of music and sort of, you know, yeah, some rude words and stuff like that, but also a bit of a rebellious energy to things really resonated with me sort of growing up and having, you know, the feelings that a lot of young guys have. And, yeah, it's just giving a place to safely express that and just blow off a little bit of steam. You know, because it wasn't just hip-hop and stuff that I was listening to, like, you know, a lot of, like, when like, Rage Against the Machine came out, it was probably, like, grade 6 or something, I think. And it's just like that, whatever you want to call it, breakdown, build-up or whatever, it's just like, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Yeah. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. And it's like, boy, it's like, holy fuck, man, like... So, you know, hearing shit like that, and like at the time, you've also got people like Ice Cube and that who are just, you know, the energy is there and it's very authentic, even if they might be talking about experiences from other people or pushing an agenda or whatever you want to say, but at the same time, like the energy is very real and it comes from a real place and it's just relatable as well, like to me. And you combine that with the music and everything, and you know, it's just like how do I start doing that as well? You know?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure. Well, you've got a leg up on most people because you've got the musical equipment at home. You've got a dad who's got somewhat of a musical understanding, even if he doesn't get the angsty teenage shit that you're listening to and trying to recreate. But you're doing a lot better than most people though in that scenario with making your own music. So do you start writing raps, or where does it go to from there, man?
Yeah, I think it just started with doing parodies of things, and
Which a lot of people did.
yeah. So I think you know, there'd be whatever song is happening, and you do your own version of that when you're 13, and it's about the teacher that everyone hates, and you're doing that whilst we're waiting for the teacher to get there, and everyone's laughing their ass off, and you're just like, you're having a
clown
giggle.
shit.
Yeah. So, you know, doing a bit of that, and then that just kind of evolves as you're going along. But, you know, also just experimenting with music, it's just never a conscious decision, man. It just happened. And I think I couldn't tell you, like, what was the first rap that I wrote. I don't know. Like, I do remember probably around 10, thinking, like, about some weird shit that even Dad was just like, what are you talking about? And just sort of thinking, like, how do people even come up with a song? Like, how do you do that? Like, and I still think it to this day about stories and movies and stuff, man. Like, that's not in my creative repertoire, you know, people coming up with like these stories. But, you know, how do you come up with an idea for a song and then see that through? And then just thinking, you know, what happens if you just were to cut a sound in half? Like, what if it started halfway through? Like, you know, like, is that even possible? Is it the same sound? And it's like, and Dad's like, well, you can just cut a piece of tape in half. Because literally you could, like, if anyone's ever done that, you get razor blade and you cut a piece of tape in half and you stick it together with tape, right?
Hence, like, the saying ends up on the cutting room floor because they used to cut the actual tape.
100%. So, you know, so doing that sort of stuff, and he's just like, yeah, you can do that. And it's just like that just blew my mind that it's even possible. And I'm like, but the sound is not starting the way, and like just sort of like starting and stopping tapes and things like that.
Well,
but they
that's
had
like
a bit
chops.
of a wind up,
Yeah.
and just listening to it and just being like, I probably just looked like this kid's weird, man. He's just sitting at an old cassette deck, just going. And then if you had two cassette decks, you could kind of break records because you could record from one to the other, right? Mm-hmm. So then you go, cool, when you record a loop, and then you try to time it and get it again, so you could get the start of a song and loop the start of a song up just on an old cassette boombox, one of these, man. So just doing stuff like that, and then a lot of them had a microphone as well that you could. So I wasn't even using the stuff that was in the shed because I was too young and I didn't know. Probably Dad wouldn't let me touch it, but like was just doing that. And I don't know, maybe that's when he started saying, you know, in that box there's just some stuff if you want to play with it. I don't know how it happened, or if I just found it one day and just started plugging it in. I don't know.
So did the MCing stuff draw you more in, or did the production stuff draw you more in? Was it the beats or the rhyme?
It's the same. It's
one and the same.
Yeah, it's just the same to me. Yeah. So every track that I do, unless I'm featuring on someone else's track, they're all my beats.
Yeah.
I record it, I mix it, I master it.
100% you.
Yeah.
And is that not like? Do you feel unnatural if you're on someone else's track? Do you feel like you need to do 100% of the fucking tune?
No. But I think when I was younger, I was more willing to collab with people because everyone's just like, hey man, let's like do a track together. Cool, man, let's do a track. And then I think now, like, being someone who's like, when I say this, like, I've literally done thousands of tracks, man. Like, we can go to my house and listen to hundreds of fucking songs that are from the past however many years, and then there's like boxes of CDs, boxes of tapes of shit that I did when I was younger. So now that novelty of, yeah, man, let's do a track, like, isn't as much there. It's just like, to me, it's something that I do. It's a craft, it's an expression, it's an artistic thing. It's just part of what I do on a day-to-day basis. So
it's like filling sketchbooks for an artist.
Yeah, man, 100%. So to me, it's like, you know, to be on someone else's song, it's like, cool, man. Like, have you got something that I can add to?
Yeah.
Is it better with me on it? And I always say that when like people who want to collab, like other MCs and stuff, I'm like, cool, man, just like, what's the track? And they're like, oh, dude, it's just like, you know, it's just gonna be bars, and it's like, that's sick.
What's the concept?
Yeah,
What's
but
the angle?
It
Yeah.
doesn't even have to be a concept. It's just like, if I'm on that, is it a better song for me being on it?
Yeah.
And if it's not, then just do the bars yourself, man. Like just spit your own shit, and then we don't have to fuck around and try to get organized and eventually put this thing out. Because I'm notoriously, today I was late. I'm late every day. I'm not flaky, but I'm hard to pin down, man. Like, you don't want to get me at the last minute. You can't book me too far in advance. You've got to be in whatever sweet spot is my vibe at that time. And then I'll just be like, 3 days from today, I have a couple of hours after work. We can do that. That's cool. And then
Is
like
that
4 days,
detrimental
no.
though, man?
Detrimental to what?
To potentially getting more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
of course
it would
is,
be.
Of course
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, of course it is. So, yeah.
Well, it's interesting to hear that creative process because I think a lot of people, and look, I'm not a rapper, man, but a lot of younger people, I think, are just interested in, let's get this guy on the track because that guy's popping off at the moment.
Yep.
And that is obviously not the school of thought you come from. You're like, is that going to work? Is that going to benefit the track? What are we doing artistically? Like, fuck that guy. We don't need him on the track because the track's good without it, you know? And that's a much better mindset, I believe.
Yeah, it is. But also it comes from just being a more mature artist and just knowing what I do and why I do it and what I'm trying to achieve. Like, as I said, when I was younger, like if someone was like, hey man, like I'll come around to your house and spit, it's like, fuck yeah, man, let's do a track.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so I was more open to like getting more experiences in and stuff like that. And to a degree, you realize that people, as weirdly flaky as I can be, like most rappers are 1,000 times worse. Most musicians are worse, you know, like just in general, like the reputation that we have is to a degree earned. Like there's a lot of really pro guys who just fucking rock steady, rock up, blah, 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 do the thing. But, you know, I think one of the things that my missus used to say when we first started going out like 20 years ago was like, yeah. So this new guy is saying, you know, he's an MC, but he's not a fuckwit. You know, like, because it's the first thing that, maybe not nowadays, but it's the first thing that used to pop into people's heads. Like.
But that's because I believe that most people that are in that overly creative mindset are not worried about other stuff because they're worried about the creativity. And now we're seeing a new generation of kids who are probably more focused and understand the business. But if you're just worried about the art, then turning up on time is not higher on the priority list.
This is true. And I think also, like, there's a lot of people who are in it to get free drinks and to get chicks or guys or whatever your thing is, and, you know, just for a bit of fun. Like, people, not everyone's in it to be an artist, and you don't have to be in it to be an artist.
But that's the thing, man. See, this is what's very interesting about having this chat, is that you're saying to be an artist, where a lot of other people are in it to make it, right?
Yeah.
Now, so the line between being an artist and making it is very different, because you know what I mean? Like, because to be an artist, you do it and you don't necessarily get financially rewarded, and you may not even get the reward from your peers, but you are the artist because that's your fucking art.
Yeah, and I'm not sure who it was that you were chatting to recently, but I saw a little bit just in a short, I think, on Instagram or something, and it was they were saying that if you want to make a job of this, you have to be aware that people will expect a return.
It was Dylan Joel, yeah.
Okay, yeah, guitar guy, yeah, okay, I'm with you, yep. And so I saw that, I was just like, oh, dude, 100%. And there's so many people that, and I was a bit of a victim of this younger as well, of just thinking, yeah, but I'll just be able to do my own thing because I saw such and such do it, you know, and they did their own thing. It's like, yeah, but they probably started a genre, you know, or they probably started a whole movement, and without them, the record companies couldn't do what it is, but now they can replicate it. And so they're just like, cool, well, we know what sells. We can find someone who sounds like this guy. We don't need you to be a risky person to sell something that we don't understand yet, because we understand it, we know it sells, we can replicate it.
Yeah.
So if you're a rapper or you're an established genre or something like that, you either need to be really good, have an amazing following, have something else business-wise going on. As you said, a lot of people are really savvy. I mean, listening to O1 Eka, like I think that one came out today, probably giving away
Nah,
lead
the
time
timeline,
for.
but that's okay. Yeah, it did. Yeah.
So like listening to him, like he sounds like someone who has a plan and he knows what he's looking to achieve and all of that sort of stuff. And there's a lot of people like that, and you know, nowadays you can look up YouTube marketing, music marketing, and this guy used to work for blah, 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 and they give you strategies, and here's your 30-day plan to release a single and all that sort of stuff. And probably if I was 20 years old, I'd just be following that, man. And as someone who grew up in a family where it's normal to be a professional musician or actor or whatever it is, I was very much sort of pushed in that way. And I think it was just something that I just don't fit that mold as much, because I don't want to do the song that you want me to do. Like, I'm not interested in that.
100%, man.
That's why I sort of stopped doing things like musicals, and people are like, oh, come and sing for your school at the shopping centre. It's like, well, I don't mind like doing like the rehearsals and singing or whatever it is, but I don't want to sing this song and particularly stand in front of a bunch of people at a shopping centre wearing your school uniform, like singing something. It just didn't feel right. Like,
No, and that is the real divide I think there is between making artistic passion a job. When your dad does it on a commercial level, he has to tailor his art to people for what they want.
Yeah, and he's good at that,
And that's but he's good at that. And so he feels like he's happy with that. But other people that are like maybe yourself that are, I want to put this art out and I'd rather do something else so I can do this art the way I want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
which
that's
is
the
similar to
difference.
what Owen was saying,
It's totally right. Yeah.
And it is. It's not the only way. It's not so black and white. It's always in grey, obviously. But yeah, I think it took me a long time to realize that, because you'd be doing stuff and literally, man, like I remember coming back from going on tour or something, and then coming back to a call center job, and like you sit down and the person next to you is just like, "What are you fucking doing here?" And like, this is not just one particular person I remember. This is like several times. Just people just going, "Why have you come back here, man? Like, you don't need to be here." But
What is it with MCs and call centers? It's a real fucking thing, man. Because they can talk, yeah. How come I never worked there? I can talk shit for days. Oh, yeah.
dude, Mr. Calling.
Call center, it's a real thing, man. So many people, I think because you can wear whatever you want, you can roll in at different times, but it seems to be a real thing.
Yeah, and to be honest, man, it was something that I always pushed against because of the rigidity of the schedule and having to show up on time, take calls as they drop in and all of that. And I really thought that I wouldn't like it. And once again, this is going to be a recurring theme throughout this whole thing, just to let you know. But Dietz was the one who got me my first call center job. And he was just like, man, it's all right. You'll like it. It's not what you think it is, man. Like, you just think grey cubicles and buy this pen,
Yeah.
But it's not always that, depending on what it is. I've done cold calling and tried to sell people stuff, and I've done novated leasing and sold cars, over the phone. So, been a student advisor, all sorts of shit over the phone, talk people off the ledge when they're like sitting in the car park. I can't do this exam. It's just like, well, you've just done like 3 months of your first semester of uni. Like, if you don't go in there, you just, like, you failed already if you don't go in. So just go do your thing. It's like, okay. And then, you might get...
Call centers, man.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah, it's a real thing. People seem to always get there. I guess it's just the flexibility of it and everything. We might have to do a call center podcast and get all people in here and talk about their different call center stories. That'd be kind of interesting.
There'll be a lot.
There'd be heaps, I reckon. So to get back onto your journey, right? So we're talking about you are recording stuff, you're producing. Well, you're not producing. You're cutting up stuff. Where do you get it? Do you get it? Where does the production journey? Do you get an MPC? Are you just still fucking,
So, yeah. So, I was literally using that 4-track tape thing probably from about... Started fiddling around with it probably in primary school, and then maybe around year 7 or 8 is when I started, like, just begging mum and dad to get me some turntables. I was just like... Because I didn't have a job or anything. I was at school.
It's like mid-90s now?
Mid-90s, yeah. So, probably around 93, 94 is when I started just... I need turntables. Dad had his own Technics, but not like a Technics 1200, like a proper Technics from like the 70s or something. It's just like if you play that thing backwards, you play that thing backwards, like you're going to cut the crap out of the records, which I'm sure I probably did once or twice. And, you know, so anyway, making on tape. And then, you know, it wasn't until I was probably about 18 or 19 that I bought my first computer. So I was using tape until I was like 18. And that's why, you know...
One take, you only get one chance to chop it up, really.
You can go over again. Like, so you got your 4 tracks and you bounce things down and record to similar to what I was doing on the cassette deck. You record from one side to another.
You can't redo it, though. You've got to go... You know what I mean? Yeah.
You can. It's just it's one of those things, like, you know, like, they say, like, you know, where limitation... Art without limitation isn't as creative.
For sure.
But it's not necessarily true, but it's not as problem-solving. And I do have a problem-solving kind of brain, you know? So to me, that sort of stuff is just, it's interesting. So it becomes a puzzle, it becomes art, you're expressing stuff. And to me, I can sit there for unlimited amount of time making music. And it's became a thing that, you know, like doing that, like to me, hearing the birds in the morning is a signal that I'm going to get in trouble if I don't go back to my room and go to bed. So, you know, it's like...
You're up all night doing it.
Yeah.
Flat out all the time.
Yeah. So it's just, you know, it's like you play video games and you can just do it for hours. Yeah. For music, it's like me, but it's like an even better video game. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just engrossing and sometimes you feel like there's been hours, but it's been half an hour. And then other times it's like that took 20 minutes, you know, like that was an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So it's just time disappears to a degree and you just, in the moment, just doing the thing.
For sure.
Do the thing.
Man, I can definitely see how that would happen. Sometimes you beat Bowser and sometimes you don't, man. You end up there. Yeah.
And you had fun, or maybe you learnt something, or maybe it was incredibly frustrating.
You threw the controller?
Yeah. So, you know, it's all cool. So, so I didn't get a computer until my cousin... Dope Beat, who I do a lot of tracks with, and was one of the person who sort of got me out of the bedroom to more getting into, and he introduced me to drum and bass and stuff when I was about 16 or 15, maybe earlier.
He played you some drum bass you'd never heard it before?
Yeah, because like a lot of the hip hop that I used to get would be from him on tapes. So because he's my older cousin, so you know you see him at birthdays and at Christmas and at whatever was happening.
Where's he sourcing it from?
Fuck knows, man. I don't know.
But it's just shit you wouldn't hear normally.
I probably never asked that question, man. Like it was just he'd just be like, so I've got this Cypress Hill tape, and you're like, okay, cool, and it's like got just the best songs from Cypress Hill and Black Sunday, and you're like, oh yeah, I know a few of these songs, and you're like, oh, these are the other songs on there. Or the first NWA tape I got was definitely from him, and that would have been probably when I was like 8 or 9, you know, like, and it's just like you pop round, and he's just like, cool, man, I'll make a copy of it. And you're like, sweet. And you're just like, oh, I've got NWA, man. And probably played it to Deets. And then he's like, yeah, man, I've got this as well. Like, Deets had everything as well.
Right.
So I've just been someone who has had people feed me music that I like.
Which is a luxury too, man.
Yeah. So I just growing up around DJs and stuff and people who are just lovers of music in general and just going, listen to this, man, listen to this, listen to this. And it's just all been ingested. You know, like I don't go searching for stuff so much. It's more like when I find something, it's like a magnet, like someone will be listening to something, you're just like, what's that one? Yeah. And you go, cool. And you go, all right, sweet, that track. And then just go and listen to the whole catalogue.
For sure. So your cousin comes in with drum and bass. Listen to this tape, man. You're like, what the fuck's this?
Yeah, so he got turntables and I was fucking jealous. And so we're at his house at some stage, I don't know, family barbecue or some shit. And he's like, cool, and he's got like just some old break records, some real classic ones, you know, like the DJs would know exactly what it is. I'm really bad at pulling the names of things out at the time, man. My brain does not work that way. I can picture the record, I know the sounds, I can't tell you what it's called. Yeah. And so he's got all these break records and stuff, and he's just playing me some hip-hop stuff that he bought on vinyl or whatever, and he would have been like 16 or something. This was about 94. I remember there was a big drum and bass rave called Panic. I think it was Panic 4. It had like the tiger from Jungle Book as the big A0 poster, and he had that behind his decks and like in his bedroom. It's like similar setup to this. Yeah. And I was just like, holy shit, man. Like,
so sick.
Yeah. And we're just like digging through stuff, and it's got like records and stuff, and he's like teaching me how to break records. And I'm just like, oh, fucking, there's this one that's like got the old Ice-T sample on it. It's like, where's it? Crack the stage and leave the audience damaged. Crack the stage, and just like spent however long doing that. And then eventually he's just like, cool, man. So like, also I've got these jungle records. I was like, I don't know what that is, man, but like, keep listening to this. And he's like, no, play some of it. And I feel like he probably played some of it to me on 33 first. It was just like, see, this is like hip hop. He's like, it's just sped up hip hop, man. And like, then played
just
like
to
this
try
old
and get you ready for it.
Yeah, I remember like resisting it. So I think because I was so interested in the other stuff, and he just taught me how to break, and I was scratching for the first time. I remember this day like vividly.
Okay.
And he even had like, there was the fader, but he also had a little cheaty transform button on it where you could just and it would instantly cut to the other track in. So it's like cut it to 50-50. So it's just literally a scratch button. So you could.
What mixture is that?
I don't know.
That's crazy. I don't know about. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's very cool. There's no battle mixer, obviously, and
so we would just go A to B, basically.
Yeah. I think it went to halfway, so it mixed it halfway in. So it literally moved it to 50-50. Yeah.
That's cool.
It was very cool. It probably had a few settings. I don't know. But yeah, so he baited me with drum and bass, a little bit of jungle, and it would have been like, I don't know who the producers would have been, but yeah, and I was like, yeah, this is cool, man. And he's like, I'm playing like, gigs and in like, warehouses and stuff like that. And I didn't it sounds like, and this was my moment when I got into drum and bass. I started going to raves, but I didn't until a few years later. And when I finished high school and we started hanging out, because he got Fruity Loops when we were like I was in year 12, or even like that year 11 to year 12. I remember being at his place at Christmas, like at his parents' house. And yeah, he had a PC with Fruity Loops. And I was just like, dude, like you've just changed the world. The world is different. Yeah.
But until then, you've been doing everything analog.
Yeah.
So you've seen how this actually works on a fucking linear, punch it out.
Yeah. And so Fruity Loops answers, even in its most basic original form, answers a lot of those questions that I had about like, what happens if you do this? Like, can you just like reverse that and then stretch it out? And
can you move that kick to here? What happens then? Yeah,
exactly right. And it's just like, and you don't have to sit there and go, on this one, I want the kick to go doodle, 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 and play the whole song out, or play it in bits where you're dropping in, So
game changer.
Complete game changer, and just the entire workflow is so much faster and limitless, it seemed. So anyway, get that. I don't know where we were at. We were talking about drum and bass. And so, then once I finished high school off, then I was like, cool, man. I think he was selling computers or hiring computers or something like that. And he was hiring computers, and they sold the old ones. And so I was like, I got a computer for like $300, which I had for like 8 years.
So funny to think people were hiring computers. Like, you can't afford a computer. Come and get one from us from $15 a week.
Straight up. It's bizarre.
That makes us sound fucking old, but that's probably the way it was.
It was 100% that way. So they leased to people
who couldn't afford a computer.
And businesses as well, and POS, like point of sale and all that sort of stuff as well. But so I bought one of those, upgraded it with some extra RAM or something, something fancy, and started getting into that, and like we were just hanging out constantly, and just started going to gigs. I think the first drum and bass gig was Tech Step 8. I think that was Trace, Matrix, and Fierce. It was at what used to be called Billboard. Mm-hmm. It's now 300 Russell or something Russell
170.
Street. 170 Russell.
It's still Billboard as a club, but when they do live gigs, it's 170 Russell.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember just walking in there, and he already knew everyone. And it's just like, what's going on here, man? Like I didn't realize what he'd been talking to me about and what other people who went to these sorts of things had been talking about, and I was just like, and our mate MCD Sam was up on mic, and I was just like, oh, all right. Okay, and he's up there spitting double time stuff and doing things that, probably a lot of people weren't doing back then.
But you're used to rap and hearing, and you're writing and you're recording rap, but now you're hearing double time people spitting on this stuff that's going twice as fast as you're used to.
Yeah. It's not necessarily twice as fast though. So, if you think of something like, something that everyone would know, right? So Naughty by Nature, hip hop, right? That shit's quick, man. They're spitting like music people would say they're spitting in triplets and stuff.
Wait, hey,
But there's some quicker stuff. So like, Vinny's quick, but like Tretch is like real quick. Like he does a lot of triplets, like your little bits, right? And that's like, that 20 years later or 15 years later, a drummer in a band, I would say, was like, it's all triplets, man. He's like, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I was like, oh, okay, I don't know that shit.
They were little punches hitting there, like, yeah.
Yeah, and just like, and sort of, just reeling out your flows and stuff. So, I mean, that thing that I spat for you today, like, it's, a lot of people would listen to it and be like, yeah, cool, man. But like, a lot of that is like changing the flows up. And those little nuances, like to me, it's not necessarily the nuance of this letter spells out this if you've got the first letter of each. That's not my style, but it's like the way that the flows piece together, and you go, all right, well, this bit is quick, and you're spitting this with the front of your mouth, and then you're getting into something that goes in a little bit more throat, and the transition from this to that is a puzzle that you have to figure out. And it's like, well, no one's going to notice that unless you try to spit it. And you go, ooh, that's actually difficult to say. You go, that's not an easy one. And you go, okay, cool. And so
there's a degree of difficulty type scenario.
Yeah, no, and that's not the point of it. It's not the point of it, but it's the
don't cut you off.
it's no. But you're right. For a lot of people, it is that. It's like, how difficult can I do shit? Someone like Eminem, like I feel like maybe with this new song he's done, this Houdini thing, he might be coming out of it. But he's been in a phase where he's trying to spit the fastest, most difficult, cleanest shit that he can for the past however many years. And a lot of people don't relate to it because it's not a cool track to bump to, right?
But he's running out of stuff to do.
And now you come into like this Houdini thing, right? And people have mixed ideas, and it's all right. But the flow is, and he's wheeling it out and bringing it back in and doing a lot of things that old school MCs would do, and drum and bass MCs will do as well. Like not necessarily the people who just like, but the people who are like spitting raps and rolling with all what's going on. You're sort of giving people an extra groove to move along to and bounce to and just be like, oh, and you don't have to appreciate whatever someone's doing to be able to like listen to it and go, this is cool. It's not necessarily you're going full bore the whole time. Just giving people cool rhythms and flows and a groove.
And some people even are good enough to put some melody in there as well, man. It's a whole different sort of thing. MCing, look, we've seen it change a lot in our lifetimes, and it went so crazy that it went pretty boring for a while, but now we're in an interesting spot, don't you reckon?
Yep. I think there's just a real variety at the moment. And there's a lot of boring shit. And sort of going back to what I was saying before, I'm not necessarily like a fan of all rap. And people would be like, oh, here's this new rapper, like particularly Deets, who's a massive fan of not just rap, but
Deets loves everyone.
He's a massive fan of art in general and
For sure.
a really broad appreciation. I think I have a broad appreciation of various styles, but I'm very narrow in the things that resonate with me. And it might not be obvious what those things resonate, and I can't tell you why it resonates with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can't tell you. I like the Dido record, what is it, No Angel or whatever, right? I was working at Target at the time. There were only a few things that I was allowed to play. It was like Chemical Brothers, and anything that didn't have swearing in it, like some Chili Peppers or something like that. Whatever I could get away with playing. And just sort of like through listening to it, I was like, actually the production in this and just like her voice sort of has that, I like those sort of like, I don't know what the word is, it's not quite husky, but it's sort of breathy sort of stuff is nice to listen to. It's not
pretty
quite
hypnotic. She had that kind of...
Yeah, so and I was allowed to play a bit of Portishead and stuff, so yeah, I don't know how we got onto that, but just emceeing today, I think there's a really broad amount of it, people doing all sorts of stuff, and people surprise me all the time, like just flick through Instagram, like, I have no idea who this is. It's a random person from whatever country. I'm trying to pick a random country, but pick a random country and there's someone from there and they're just spitting some shit. You're just like, damn, man, like that's cool. And so you just go through all their stuff. Are they on Spotify? Have they got music? Cool. Chuck them in your playlist and then they just become part of what you listen to.
For sure. And the thing is with the internet, man, and like you said, like that, there's lots of people out there that are flexing their skills, especially on Reels or whatever, but that doesn't mean that they can actually make tracks. And a lot of people haven't crossed over like that, have they? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they can rap and they can go and spit some fucking fire bars, but then you're like, can you actually make a track? And they struggle. You know?
Yeah,
That's a different art form in itself.
Yeah, because it's not everyone's thing, you know. So
But that's where Eminem has done pretty well because he's been able to flex his skills like that, and he has been able to make hit songs, whether or not those hit songs are for everybody. Like you said, the most recent one, which I haven't really properly listened to, but he's managed to do both. Which then you go, well, you got some fucking credibility there.
yeah, man, 100%. And look, again, he came through time and place, circumstances, and also just pushed it. You know, like I mean, back then, like the whole white rapper thing was still taboo. Like it seems crazy, and I think people that
Beastie Boys.
Yeah, but it was taboo. So I listened to Beastie Boys. So going back to high school, when I changed from the primary school that I was at to the high school I went to was a private school in East St Kilda, Caulfield Grammar. And so when I went there, it was a bit of a culture shock to me from going from like Coatesville Primary in East Bentley to going to a grammar school, and it's like, to me, it looked like fucking Hogwarts. Hogwarts didn't exist yet because Harry Potter had not been written. Nowadays, it's epic. But even back then, to me, it was just like, whoa. And people didn't just, it was, I don't know how to say it, but I would just say like there was probably only a few people in each year level that dug rap or anything related to things like that. Just different exposure and different way of growing up. And I think
You're the same age as me, yeah?
A couple of years older. Yeah.
Oh, you're a bit.
Caulfield.
Is that got
It's tied into that because so the whole it was just sort of kind of taboo, like sort of white rapping, and obviously as you said, there's the Beastie Boys, right? But they're cool. That's not the same thing.
They were on the alternative side of it, and they had their own place in the musical fucking landscape.
Yes, correct. But they sort of got a lot of their way in. Like, obviously, they're a New York hardcore band or whatever. I'm not a Beastie Boys historian, but I'm a big fan. And, but they got their big break, like, was it Def Jam? Like, but they're, the guys that they're hanging out with, like Run DMC and LL Cool J and stuff, like, that's rap.
Yeah.
And they're on tour with those guys.
Rick Rubin champions them, you're in.
Yeah. So,
Who happens to be a white guy, which is weird.
Yeah. So there's the Beastie Boys, which is totally cool. Then there's Rage Against the Machine, which is also a rap, totally cool. And then kind of that's it. Otherwise, you're just Vanilla Ice, right? And so just everyone's like, you wear baggy jeans to school or something, which, everyone at primary schools would, not everyone, but there's lots of people, people wearing baggy jeans. Like it's cross colors and, just like old school stuff. Yeah. Crazy, starter jackets and shit, like, Charlotte Hornets jerseys, like, just all that shit. Yeah. And you wear that to this school, and it was just a different suburb. It's different kids, and it just wasn't cool. So, but eventually the kids that were around me started getting exposed to that and listening to Cypress and stuff as well. But so I think, it was sort of a different time, and Eminem sort of rode that. He was really the big change that changed from the world that I was exposed to, changed people's perception of what was okay. And for me, as a performer, probably changed the opportunities that were available to me, and also changed the Melbourne hip-hop scene, which was, the people who founded it and everything had their thing going on. And, you've heard me rap. Probably what I do doesn't quite fit in snugly with what they do. So it wasn't really cool for me to hang out with them. They're just like, yeah, man, like you can rap, but like you should do this. And it's like, but I don't do that. I do this. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't what they were doing. So that's all cool. And that sort of led me down the drum and bass path and rave culture and stuff, which is just far more accepting and open-minded and just like come as you are and just like, but again, like someone like Eminem, really, he rode a wave, and he didn't start a genre. Maybe he did. Like he opened a lane, and for everyone.
For sure, man. I talk to so many different people on this show about you don't really know what you can do until you see someone else do it, and then when people like that, and that like it happens all the time. in skateboarding or in sport, you see someone else can do it, or someone made the AFL from my local team. You're like, I can actually do it. We can do that.
Yeah.
So once you start seeing people that you can identify with make it, you're like, oh, this is potentially a possible thing that we can fucking do. And that changes people's mindsets.
Yeah, it does. It does. You know, sometimes you've got to see it. Sometimes to not see it and not be exposed to things as well, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't realize that you can't do something.
Yeah.
And so to me, it was weird that people were just like, why do you do this? Like, as I was saying before, never a conscious decision. It's just like, this is just something I do. Like, and so not trying to ride on coattails or something. It's just when I was born, and you know, the same time, like rap was already starting to grow, and so there was never a time that I was conscious of that it didn't exist. But also, it was very young and still sort of just coming in, seeping in, and it sort of found its way in different ways into, I don't know, it's probably on Sesame Street or stuff like that, you know, like there'd be a little something going on, and it might be, you look at it now, it's real cheesy and sort of like,
but see, that's where you're really lucky though, man, because you had older cousins and family friends that could school you with that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I never had that. I would just watch like, Hey, It's Saturday, and like they'd do red faces and dudes would be breakdancing. I'm like, that's fucking sick.
Yeah,
but I had no one to like be like, here, take this, this is what you know.
Yeah, and
that's really, really cool that you had people to give you. I had no older brothers or sisters or cousins or anything like that.
Yeah, because otherwise you don't know. And I am a shocker for that, for like not knowing what's going on or who the new rapper is or anything like that. And yeah, you know, I think that's really important. But yeah, to sort of grow alongside that is I think has molded into what I am, because as hip hop has grown and stuff, it wasn't this already preordained thing. Going back to what we were saying about record companies can now just duplicate shit. They can have another Eminem. I'm not going to name anyone, but there's several clones of Eminem kicking about, you know? Like there's several clones of whoever you want to call, you know, like kicking about. You know, even someone that people at the moment are really loving, Kendrick Lamar, you know, like from what I've heard is that the first stuff that he put out wasn't necessarily the sort of music that he was 100% digging. And sort of, so he did a little bit of that duplicate. And, you know, as you were talking about with Guitar Guy, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name.
Dylan.
Thank you. You know, talking about that, going, all right, cool, if I want to make this my job, then I'm going to get some monetary return, do some things that are commercial, and you earn your freedom, you know. Look at, like, the Beatles set that template 50 years ago.
Probably like 70 now, but it's a while ago.
Probably, yeah. Like, it was probably like, I think, like Abbey Road and Let It Be is probably like 68, 69, like Let It Be might be 70.
60 years ago, yeah.
So, you know, and they came from playing the rockabilly stuff, doing covers of stuff and letting other people do covers of their songs, letting an American person do a cover of their song, the American version, you know, how it used to be. And, you know, we had the Australian version of songs. And then, you know, so that's, you earn your freedom that way if you want to go that road.
So when you started emceeing and when you started going down the drum and bass route, and that's a newer... Look, it's obviously not a newer genre, but it's a newer genre in Melbourne party scene. So where are you going and where are you first like grabbing a mic in that sort of scenario?
Yeah, so again, just jumping up with my cousin Dope Beat, and literally, I think the very first time that I got up was there was a crew called 40 Hertz, which was like Phil Ruxpin and Lexecutioner, shout out Lex, and a few other people involved in that one. So they put on these real-time parties. I think it was a real time at Revolver. And my mate MCD, who I was saying was playing at that first one that I went to, was just like, dude, get up on the mic. And I was like, and I'm pretty sure that I got up, Ruxpin was on the decks, or maybe Lex, or maybe both of them. They used to go back to back, probably before an international played and stuff like that. And I remember, just looks of disgust, like, who the fuck are you giving the mic to? Because like back then, it wasn't like nowadays. A lot of gigs are like people just grabbing the mic and random people getting out and shit like that. But at that particular gig, that particular crew, that was not the vibe. Right. And so I got vouched for. Basically, he co-signed for me. And he was just like, "This dude's all right." Got up and did my thing, and then from there, just doing gigs from then on. It worked. Like, I enjoyed it. DJs enjoyed it. Crowd enjoyed it. We all had fun. Did the thing.
Fun time was had by all. Can you remember any lines from that?
There would have been shit. I can't remember that. No.
Had you developed the Wasp moniker by then? Were you MC? Were you always MC Wasp?
Always MC Wasp.
And where does that come from?
So, probably about grade 5 or 6.
So that's fucking early, man.
Yeah, and more so, less from a musical moniker, but just from like, wanting to do like little throws or something, like something to sketch. Like, just Wasp was a cool word.
Yeah, it's cool.
And then it sort of just went away from that. And there was someone who used to write Wasp as well. Like, I don't know when they started, maybe a little bit after that, or maybe they were already writing.
There's Wisp. We've got his book over there.
Yeah, there's Wisp, but there also used to be, there probably still is a guy called Wasp, and there have been suggestions that I should change my name at one stage. But yeah, obviously that hasn't happened. But anyway, so yeah, that sort of started that way. And it's one of those things that, people ask me a lot about the name. I've had a lot of people suggest that it needs to be changed.
Why?
Because it's not a cool rap name, man. But to me, it's like, like I would say, describe, without telling me what they look like, describe a wasp.
Someone who's just always hanging around.
So I think it's the vibe of a wasp, like there's the aggressiveness, there's the sort of
relentlessness. I think of that. When I think of Wasp, I think of like it's relentless, which I think is cool.
Yeah. So I feel like it's that kind of vibe like resonated with me, and shit sticks.
Yeah. And MC Charlotte Hornets wasn't going to be a thing.
I tried, man. LJ got his grandma to call me up, and it's like, dude.
No, man, I didn't even, I don't really prepare very well, but I never wrote down that as a question, but it just dawned on me then. I'm like, when did the Wasp moniker come into it? But I think from a hip-hop point of view, it isn't, well, like some people might say, it's not the most hip-hop name, but I think from a drum and bass point of view, I think it's perfect.
Oh, yeah, in drum and bass, I've never had anyone question it. It's in hip-hop.
It sounds like spot on.
Yeah, exactly right. And you're sort of doing like a lot more double time stuff, and, but yeah, so that's sort of how it went. And I think early on, it's constantly evolved, man. So I think one of the earliest time that I really got up on a proper stage, like not at a house party or some sort of school-related gig or something, like a battle of the bands or something like that, was the very first Revolver MC comp, which was 99.
Yep.
Just turned 18. My sister was going to Revs a lot, and she's like, they're doing this MC comp. There's like all these prizes and shit. I was like, oh, cool. So I signed up for that, went along, did my thing, and that was broadcast on like Triple R or something. So somewhere I have a tape with that on it.
Amazing.
I'm sure
Dietz has got it. Dietz has got it.
If it still plays, that would be amazing. But yeah, so I did that. And then what was that show on ABC that was like Sunday mornings or whatever? It had that Dylan guy. Recovery. So they were there filming.
It was not far from your school, man.
Right. Oh, yeah, at the old ABC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were there, and my sister was just like, "Mate, you've got to like," probably just drunk off her face, and just like, you've got to see my younger brother. He's a rapper. He's awesome. And like, I remember like doing some sort of interview for them. They recorded the bit. It was on TV, and it was one of my first weird things I remember. Like, it's kind of random, right? But I remember seeing myself rapping on Recovery or whatever, and then they cut from rapping to like my feet, but they weren't my feet. They were someone else's shoes. And I was just like, oh, that's not my feet. Like, what? I don't even own those shoes, man. Like,
were they dancing or what was
no,
it?
it was some other MC, like, but they probably only had one camera, right? Like, they're probably a low budget sort of, yeah. But yeah, so that's probably the earliest that I remember ever being in a real club or a real venue spitting raps. Like,
do you remember who else was emceeing that night?
Reason was hosting it.
Yeah.
There were a few of the obese guys were the judges. know. Have to check the internet, mate. But yeah.
I have had a few people on that were a part of those stuff. I think Dan's is a bit of a historian. He might know.
Yeah, he'd know for sure. You remember something?
He might know. But you didn't win.
I did not win. I did not make the finals, and I remember.
But you cut your teeth.
I cut my teeth.
Stage and
I cut my teeth. I remember having one of the judges sort of say to me, like, look, man, good job, did well. Like, just as I was buying a drink at the bar, just came up and was like, good job, man, did really well. Like, wanted to put you in the finals or whatever, but just come back another time or something like that. It's probably just drunk and just saying something nice, but because it's my first gig,
and you're 18.
I couldn't tell you who it was.
You're 18.
Yeah, I just turned 18. Yeah.
So you're fucking young, man.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's all experiences, the random shit you remember, someone else's feet, like.
So then that sparks a little bit of a fire on, and you're like, okay, I can keep doing this. I'm getting some respect. I can get a microphone. I can get a stage. I can fucking keep doing it.
Yes and no. Again, it was a natural thing for me, so I don't think it was that big a deal to do it. Right. I was just cool, and like that was just the first one. So it was, just getting up and like, as I said, like I don't remember the first time I got on stage as a kid. I don't remember if it was getting up and singing something for like a kindergarten class or if it was some sort of like little dance wearing a flower costume or something. I don't know. Like I really don't know. So it's completely natural to do that sort of shit. And I think probably took it in stride and, from what you're saying, probably didn't appreciate the moment in the way that someone who had a different upbringing and a different path would be like, have their 8 Mile moment, Like,
yeah, so
there's no mom spaghetti. Like, I'm not getting nervous before doing something. It's just
part of it.
It's fish in water.
So then you go on to do after. Okay, so even if it's not a big like moment for you, you're still going on from there.
It is.
It is, but you're still going on from there, and you're still writing, and you're still doing more stuff, and then that hasn't spurred you on. You were gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly right. Like,
so what's the next step?
Felt inevitable.
Yeah.
So the next step is probably trying to get into some hip hop stuff. Mm-hmm. And as I said, like probably didn't fit snugly with what was going on there, so probably met some resistance.
Did you always feel like you didn't fit in?
Not really. Like I probably hadn't considered that I didn't fit in.
Right.
Until I was told.
Until someone said, you're doing something a bit different, man. You do your own thing over there.
Yeah. Like maybe you should rap this way and you should do this and like, and it's like, but I don't do that. That's not what I do, man. Like, that's cool. Like, I don't understand why I have to do that and I'm not going to. Like, I remember there's like a Dr. Dre quote from, what's the documentary that they put out not so long ago? It's like the whole story of Dre and Jimmy Iovine and that.
Yeah, the Defiant ones.
Defiant ones, yeah. And he's sort of saying like there's a bit where he's talking about I don't want to do anything that makes me feel fucked up. I mean, it's almost an exact quote. And that resonated with me. I was just like, oh, dude, like, that's my life. You're talking about my life here. Like doing certain things like seemed like the obvious thing to do, but it's like, it doesn't feel right. So I'll go along, I'll do this gig, but I'm probably not going to come back and do another gig with you guys. I don't like it. And so I just go and find something else. But drum and bass was fun, man. And I'd finished school and I was partying and staying up all night and just going out and doing outrageous shit and was embraced by that community and I embraced that community and focused on that. Like I didn't have to break into the hip hop scene because there was something else to do. There was another lane, and it was equally interesting and satisfying to me, but probably there was always something in me that wanted to be able to perform my own songs, and most of the songs that I do are hip hop. And I always wanted the opportunity to do that.
That's interesting.
But the lane wasn't there. Yeah.
Yeah. So just say my dad walks in now, right? And he's a rock and roll.
Don't tell him my real name.
Yeah. He's a rock and roll kind of guy.
Yeah.
He's not that old. He's in his early 60s.
Yeah.
But he would have no idea what drum and bass is, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would you explain that to him?
Fast hip hop.
But then he would be like, yeah, but like what? Like what? He would even be mildly confused by hip. Not mild, he would just
rap music. Go rap music like do do ch do 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 ch Just think.
Okay.
And that's that's your sort of jungle stuff, right? And now it's obviously evolved into far more various subgenres and all sorts of shit going on. There's still jungle, obviously, but that's how I would describe it, and that's how Dope Beat baited me into it.
Yeah.
It was just double time hip hop.
Yeah.
And it pretty much is double time hip hop. It's a little bit slower. Like most of it's probably, a lot of it, people like to play around sort of 170, 174 BPM. And
Which essentially is half of that and double that at the same time.
yeah. And I
When you
guess
think from a rhyming perspective.
yeah, which is why it's not different. So that's why the double time drum and bass stuff is quadruple time hip hop, if you want to call it that. But there's lots of little triplets in it and lots of the flows that work. It's all the same. Like mathematically, it's the same. So, it's when you switch out of that sort of lane and you go down to something like breaks, or if you want to start spitting over like house music or some sort of commercial dance where you're sort of probably more around the 140 beats per minute, that's when you're really having to alter the flows that you're doing, and the same raps that you're spitting to drum and bass and hip hop are not going to work because the tempo is in the middle. So you need to have a completely different repertoire for that. Like some of your skills are going to translate, but a lot of the stuff, like if you're just drunk and freestyling and having a good party time, a lot of the muscle memory that you have to go from one word into another word, if you're not doing written stuff, is not necessarily going to translate and might feel weird and clunky until you get used to it. So you sort of have to have a different repertoire.
No, you're right, because the house is in its own thing because you're going at that 4/4 at that 120 something all the time. But then, like, even when you look at trap music or whatever that slower sort of mumble rap stuff, it's like 70 BPM, but then it's kind of 140 at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of it from a DJ perspective, and I'm like, okay, they're trying to work like that. And then dudes will rap slower, then they'll rap faster. But I guess from a drum and bass perspective, it doesn't really matter because you're just going from that one to the other.
Drum and bass and hip hop are extremely closely related. Like it's, and you can say like the historians will tell you, and I think when you had Fracture on, I think, and he was talking about the origins of grime. Was that Fracture or was that Scotty?
Oh, yeah. Scotty Fracture.
Both of them were talking about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're sort of talking about where that's come from, and obviously they're sort of parallel things that have developed independently but aware of each other. And, like I can't remember who you're talking to, but probably one of those guys as well, but sort of saying about the influence of, a small island like Jamaica on the rest of the world, right? And how that has come and been incorporated and, mixed into the culture of where it is. And, then you've got things like drum and bass and which are, jungle music, which is turning into things like garage and stuff like that. And then you've got hip hop, which is probably turning into trap, which is, you've also got variations of dance hall, like coming into that already developed stream, and they're just crossing over and mixing and getting together. And once you put the sugar in the water, it's there,
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting now because like we're at a point where the genre lines are blurred to the point that no one really cares.
Yeah, well, some people care, but yeah.
No, people do, but I think people
that
get hung up on genres, it's pretty fucking ridiculous, right? Because if someone wants to go double time on something, they're not going to go, well, that's the way that you should be, spitting on a drum and bass track. They go, no, you're just double time on this beat. That's a grind beat. It doesn't matter.
And people accept it now, and that sort of, again, loops back to what I was saying, like with, Eminem coming in and doing his thing, and various people who've had their moments and opened up little lanes here or there and made it so that you've got people like O1 come in and probably have grown up with a far more developed sound and things like, YouTube there to be able to explore stuff and not have to get tapes from your cousin if you're lucky enough to have that. Otherwise, you're watching Hey Hey It's Saturday. And then, which I was watching too. Yeah. I was watching too, and my dad was on Hey Hey It's Saturday and stuff. And then, so you've got this more broadly accepted thing. And again, once the sugar is in the water, right? And so I think, that's why there's a lot of people who say, hey, there's this music that belongs to certain cultures and things like that. And to a degree, it really does. but also when you've grown up exposed to something, again, as I was saying earlier, perhaps even if you're removed from something, you don't know the context of things. I didn't know the context of a lot of the music that I was listening to till I was older. And now sometimes I listen to stuff and go, oh shit, that's what they were talking about, man. Like, holy fuck. Even Rage Against the Machine, I didn't know what, some of those that were enforcers are the same that burn torches. I didn't know that was just a cool line, man. Like, enforcers, burning torches. Like, fuck you, I want to do it yourself.
When we were 14, I was like, wow, that's, I knew that there was a deeper meaning, but not until you get older, you realize, man, have you heard Zach De La Rocha talk about, like, he's a fucking intelligent dude who was probably in his, I'd say, late teens, early 20s, and he knew what he was fucking on about, man. When we were just going like, this is sick to listen to while I try and do a kickflip for the 15th time and fuck it up.
Yeah. Perfect skating music, man. But, and that's the thing. Probably also, again, like because of where he was born, who his parents are, what he's exposed to, what he's seeing and what's coming into his life, So I think a lot of things as an artist, often or as a skater, as an anything, you look at some of the lessons that you get and it's the classic, like, I wish I knew that earlier, man. Like, I wish I knew that earlier. Like, why did it take me so long to see something that was so obvious? Or like, why was I never exposed to this or that? Or why didn't it just click? Like, it was actually being slammed in my face the whole time. But you just, like everyone is open to different things at different times. That you absorb it when you absorb it.
We didn't have the internet, man, right? So, and that's the thing. Like, we had it in its very early infancy, and if you did like Rage Against the Machine, you would look up Rage Against the Machine. We didn't have Google. We sound like fucking old cunts now, but it's true. You didn't have Google. You'd type it into Alta Vista, and it would just come up with whatever EMI or whoever the record label was told you about Rage Against the Machine. Yeah. They didn't tell you what Zach De La Rocha's fucking mantra was and what even Rage Against the Machine meant. So you could only figure out what you could get from the CD or the record that you had. And
it was whoever told you, whoever's around you. So you might have some people that go, you know what that line means, man? Because their mum and dad are telling them about it because their mum and dad are interested in this fucked up thing that's happening over here on the other side of the world. And, so it's exposure and what people know. And then maybe you tell someone at school, but, to me, it was just cool line, cool song.
For sure. But also that's what I think made hip-hop music for a kid growing up in Melbourne like myself, and I'm guessing like yourself, feels like so far away because all this stuff was so you couldn't even get near it because it was from another place.
It was, yeah.
It was, for sure. And then when you've got local artists coming out, you're like, it's tangible. This is people that are talking with an Aussie accent.
Yep.
And then even with like drum and bass and that sort of stuff, you've got dudes who, are not fitting that hip hop stereotype who are emceeing, and that makes it tangible as well.
Yeah.
It changes everything.
Yeah. It does. It gives you a place to go and new things to learn. And, even seeing MCD that time, like I knew him. I knew that he was my cousin's friend, but I'd never seen him rap. I didn't know I'd seen him skate. I knew he was a cool skater. I knew he was a cool blader. I knew he could write. I didn't know he was rapping. I've been rapping my whole life. Like, why don't you tell me your mate raps, dude? Like, you're a DJ. Like, we could have been doing this the whole time, But, just things happen when they happen. You just gravitate towards shit and it just feels natural.
Yeah, so what about your own sort of recordings and that sort of thing at this stage? If we're going to get back on the linear path, are you getting to that sort of thing where you're recording stuff or are you just doing things live?
Yeah, at that point I was recording stuff. I'd been pretty much since, going back a year or two before that to the end of high school or whatever, when I realized that, that Fruity Loops was there. I was just like, dude, can you record into this? It's like, no, but we've got another program, Cool Edit Pro. So you make the beat in Fruity Loops, you go to Cool Edit Pro, which is like literally just a very basic audio editor. With I think it had 2 channels at first. Like you left it basically like a 4-channel. You could put a beat in and then you could record a mic over it, maybe 2. And then they brought out Cool Edit Pro, which had like 4 channels, 6 tracks, something like that. It's like, whoa, yeah. But at that point, that's when we could tangibly, really quickly make songs that didn't have to be on tape, which then you copied onto another tape, which was your album, and then you copied that tape for someone, and by that time it's all fucking muffled and you can't really tell what's going on, but it was cool, you know. So yeah, I was putting out tracks then. Probably first started like, you know, once you could burn CDs, you could easily give someone a copy of what you heard. So nothing was lost in translation. So like, even though the mixing and the mastering, I knew nothing about it, it sounded shit house, sounds like beyond a demo nowadays, like just like, fuck is this? But you could give that to people, give mixers. You get a mini disc and you could plug it into your mixer and record a whole set with the mics. And, you know,
Mini disc was big, man.
Yeah, and so we did that. And so we take that mini disc, put it into Cool Edit Pro.
We're so fucking old.
Dude, but this is the reality of what it was. And it's how, like, probably how things like record companies and that lost their hold over music, and then it became things
that was
like,
the beginning, man.
Yeah.
That was the beginning. I remember a girlfriend I had at the time of that sort of late 90s had a component fucking CD player that had a CD burner in it.
Yeah.
And after that, you're like, you don't even need a computer anymore. And then not long after that, you know, everyone's got a mini disc. Not everyone, but not for very long. People had mini discs. And then that's it, man. And after that, it was just like LimeWire or fucking whatever it was.
Yeah.
And that's basically the end of recording, like music. Like, that's it.
Pirate Bay or whatever it was.
Back then, I think it was...
It was LimeWire, I think,
LimeWire
first.
And Napster, LimeWire, all that shit, man. But it changed everything.
It did. So, you know, the ability to be able to do that meant that you didn't have to sit there and also record it in real time. So you could do 20 copies in however long, like things used to burn, like if you had a 2-speed burner and stuff. Like, we're probably getting too far into that sort of shit.
So, he's got a 36-speed burner. Come round to his house.
Yeah, smash out a whole bunch of copies. Or maybe you got a laptop, you got a computer tower with like...
that? You have to have you'd sit there for hours.
Yeah, man. But to give someone a tape, you would have to listen to it in real time and record it.
You could high-speed dubbing.
Yeah, some things did that, true. Yeah, but you still had to sit there and, like, I suppose you could turn the volume down, but it's going...
Sound like the Chipmunks.
Yeah, but that never sounded quite the same, like, because you get the anomalies of tape. So it was better to do it in real time. But
Man, but look, for somebody, and I can only talk from my own personal experience, once the internet happened and all that shit came out, then, like, I didn't have anyone to feed me music or to hand shit to me. I was like, I'd watch a skate video, like, oh, that's Jurassic 5. What else have they got?
Yeah,
they'd have one song.
Skate videos were a good source of music.
Great source. That, and then you'd go and then you'd find that, oh, that's Diamond D. What else does he do? Oh, I find DITC. Right, so I would find a lot of music like that through skate videos because I never had anyone to give them to me. But the internet changed all that so we could all consume that shit.
Yep.
And it opened the playing field. So you're like, oh, this music, like there was no more gatekeepers sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there was it was bad for recording artists, but it was great for letting people getting their music out there.
Yep. Totally agree. And you know, and that's when, you know, lanes opened up and gatekeepers lost their power to a degree, and you know, it paved the way for us to sort of put on our own gigs or do our own sort of music, and for people to be more open to it, and to also be able to find people that wanted to hear that probably also felt similar, like, you know.
But people didn't know they wanted to hear it because they'd never heard it, right? And then you got the internet and people go, oh, there's a whole fucking genre of music. There's a whole world out there that I didn't know because it wasn't there. We had commercial music, you had television, you had whatever your friends at school could give you, and that was it. The internet, bang, mid-90s, late 90s, changes it.
Yeah, 100%. It just, it completely changes everything, and I think gives you that ability to gravitate towards things that are slightly more aligned with you, that resonate a little bit more. You go, yeah, I really like this, but I really like this.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you've probably got people from the other side of the world that go, we've only got drum and bass nights happening here. Now they're popping up in Melbourne, right?
Yep.
That wasn't going to happen pre-internet. It was never going to happen.
No, but then again, I suppose, you know, there's a natural ingrained link between Australia and the UK, obviously. That's part of the Commonwealth, you know,
which I'm not a huge fan of. But
under Your Majesty, the King, or whoever we have at the moment. So, you know, but the lines are there, you know? So,
for sure.
So things like that probably did come through even a little bit more hand to hand than you think, you know? Like
No, they were
literally,
there in record stores and that sort
Yeah.
of thing, but pre-internet, that you wouldn't have the audience
So much
to
harder, yeah.
have a specific drum and bass night. Like they probably happened on a smaller scale.
Yeah. Well, they were happening. I mean, you know, they were definitely happening as early as 93 and 94 in Melbourne. And that's before the internet was really used. For
Just on the
that
on the
kind of-
verge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So there was still stuff like that kicking about. Yeah. Okay. I didn't have the internet in my house at that stage, so I can't comment on that. But
I got it. I got it in '94, and I was an early adapter.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not. Look, and I'm not a drum and bass aficionado. I'm not. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying that it is. Once that happens, people are privy to that music, which then pushes it into the.
Oh,
into
yeah.
the-
Yeah,
into-
yeah.
And so that shit
Boosts
starts
it.
happening.
Yeah. It's like a little XP boost. So yeah, you know, yeah, man.
And what about like from there? You're recording songs, you're making beats, you're doing all that sort of stuff. You go to run your own nights. What's the next step in the evolution of MC Wasp, man?
Yeah, it's sort of it builds up. So putting on gigs here or there is just sort of again a natural thing if you're involved in it. You get an opportunity to do something. Someone has a club or whatever, and just had a lot of residencies throughout time.
And it's DIY culture. You got to do it because no one else is going to do it for you.
Yeah, exactly right. And so doing all that, and then you know, in terms of then, as I was saying before, just having that feeling inside that I still really want to share the songs that I create at home, and got an opportunity here or there. And you know, this guy Dietz, it's really like that's the genesis of the Get Down, you know. And this story's probably been told a few times in various ways, depending on what mood you get me or Dietz in. But you know, the very first one that we did at the Brunswick Hotel, which is now rest in peace, got flooded and is now the Bergie, or the Burgie, however you want to say it.
How is the right way to say it?
I don't know. I say Bergie, man. He says Burgie. I say Bergie. It's the Bergie seltzer. It's the Bergie band dream.
Yeah, okay.
That's what it is to me.
Okay.
Until someone who owns the place tells me differently, like it corrects me. Then, but anyway, so yeah, going back to that was probably years of hounding, or a decade of hounding of him going like, why don't you just do your tracks, man? And because I had felt the resistance, I was just like, no. And eventually, like Dietz just going, you know, like, what if, probably through his own desire to get involved and to promote artists and just seeing all these people, like this variety of music that's out, because as you're saying, there's the internet and there's all this shit and there's just people doing all sorts of shit that's not getting shown. Through that desire and sort of me, like us being mates since literally before we were old enough to really remember, sort of it's just obvious to sort of be like, man, like, when are you going to do a gig? When are you going to do it? And I remember there was a few before this one where it's just like, what if I could book this venue on this date? It's in like 3 weeks. Could you do some tracks? It's like, dude, I can't do tracks. I got to rehearse. I got to get the instrumentals right and all that.
But
and
if
he's like,
you build it, they will come.
yeah. And eventually just like, he was like, all right, well, what if we book this place in like in 2 months? And I don't know how many times he would have tried, like probably infinite times. And I'd just water off a duck's back. And eventually it resonated. And it might have even been a case of, I've booked a thing. I need you to play. It's in 2 months. Can you do it? Like, I need you and Dope Beat to perform your songs, man. Let's go. And by that stage, I already had an album out like a few years before that I, you know, just self-released and some other minor stuff. But there was at least something on the internet that people could listen to, a full-length album. And yeah, it was like we did like a 40-minute set or something, or probably almost an hour set at that. It was.
That's the Get Down one.
That's the Get Down one.
Or just called the Get Down.
Just the Get Down, yeah, just the Get Down.
Yeah.
Probably in the back of Deet's mind, it was the Get Down one. In the back of my mind, it was not. And, you know, that was the Get Down one. And it was Wednesday night, probably about 40 people or something like that. A lot of our mates and some randoms, and really good night. And, you know, just the ability to do that sort of showed me that perhaps 20 years of resistance had built up as a little blocker in the back of my mind just wasn't the climate anymore. And so you could come out and do that, and people would just be like, all right, you're not doing typical Australia rap, right, whatever, but people are still open to it. You're not going to get a room full of people just going, you know, which is what happened several times.
Right. Because you were just a bit left of centre.
Just different, yeah. Just not doing what people were doing. And I don't want to go into the specifics. Anyone who knows what Aussie hip hop was like back then knows what I'm talking about. Anyone who doesn't, go and just listen to some music back then. Listen to what I'm doing, and you'll realize that it's not the same. And so I got tossed into a bucket of people who are rapping like Americans or something. It's like, all right, well, it's not really what I'm doing, but at the same time, I don't sound like you, and I probably don't sound like the people that you think I sound like. But at the same time, I didn't, as I said before, I didn't fit snugly with that. And so there was resistance, and often people, you get up on stage and people are like, yeah, cool, and they hear your beats and they're like, ah, cool, and then you start rapping and they're like, yeah, and then they start to see other people not nodding their head and they're like, oh, nah, you're cool. You know, much as I've said, like a lot of people have been like, you know, change your name, change this, change a couple things, slow your beats down, you know, maybe a little bit more down, you know, like, I mean, a lot of Melbourne stuff is down beats, or like slightly slower than what I do. Some cool slowed down drum sounds, cool, like, it's cool, man. Like, you know, I'm not dissing it, but it's not
That's
what I do.
That's almost the Melbourne sound, though, without lack of a better term.
It is.
Which we can kind of be proud of, but you just don't fit into that.
100%. And that's like an evolution of what it used to be, because things evolve and stuff, right? But, and I'm not paying that out at all, but just a lot of the people who were doing that just didn't dig my sound. And I felt that. You know, I know, like, intrinsically as a performer, you can tell when the other acts don't like what you're doing, and they feel resentment towards you and just sometimes straight up hate what you're doing and just like, mate, fuck off.
Yeah. But it's your art and it's your way that you do it. And at the end of the day, if you're a lyricist that backs what you do, which I can tell that you are, you could be like, fuck, well, let's let the lyrics speak for themselves.
Yeah, true. But also at the same time, it's like, I don't have to perform at your gig, man.
Yeah.
I don't have to perform at your gig. I got other shit to do, you know? And, you know, even at this point, like when we started to get down, like I'd already been doing tours for electronic shit in Europe and stuff, doing gigs, people, over 100,000 people, you know? Like, so
because they don't know about the Melbourne sound in Europe. They just go, this guy can rap and we don't care where he comes from.
Exactly right.
But that's the difference, man.
That's exactly right. And, you know, and I was apprehensive. Like the first time I did a gig overseas, was in Maribor at this, you know, this event for in a country that English is not the first language. And I'm just like, let's see how this goes. And I was just like, cool. It's just a gig. People are just digging the music. It's all cool. It's universal. A lot of the resistance wasn't there. So just did my thing. But yeah, you know, so getting back to, you know, how the Get Down started and stuff, it was like, obviously there was a time for Elaine. It was probably Melbourne had been ready for it and doing it well before I realised, and Deets knew. And so we put this gig on, and the rest is kind of history. Then we do the Get Down 2 at Horse Bazaar.
Horse Bazaar,
yeah.
They had a lot of hip-hop gigs there for a while, didn't they? They were open to all that shit, yeah.
Very open to it. Very cool people, very cool venue. So, yeah, we did that there, and then the rest is history, and just sort of, you know, through connections at clubs that I've had and sort of, you know, sort of being part of the Revs extended family. Being able to do stuff like that.
How many have you had so far? What one is this coming up in July, man?
This is numbered Get Down number 22.
Which is a lot.
But there's been a lot of non-numbered ones. So we sort of had a weekly down at Ronnie's on Chapel for a little while, midweek, and there's been some various stuff and some affiliated gigs and all of that. So yeah, there's been a lot, and you know, I think I've performed at about 13 or 14 of them. And, you know, just doing the thing and just working in the background, and sort of through having, you know, Deets sort of kind of forced me to do it. And
let's say championing it.
Championing it. I've realized the value that gives to other people. And for a long time, I didn't want people to know that I had anything to do with putting the Get Down on, because, first of all, I didn't want people to think, oh, you're just playing your own gigs and stuff like that. But also, I don't know, I just like to be able to kick it in the background and listen to people's music and then be able to chat to people afterwards and not necessarily get the sales spiel. And then have other MCs coming up and like, hey man, like, cool, like I'm a rapper, dude. Like, it's like, yeah, look, I'm watching this person, man. Like, it's not that I'm not interested in the fact that you're a rapper, but like, I'm trying to watch this person that we're giving an opportunity to.
And that's essentially what the Get Down is from what I can gather. It's not about making money. It's not about, blowing up and changing everything. It's about giving opportunity and a platform to people that you think are good artists that deserve that.
Yeah.
And even people that are potentially on different wavelengths of the hip-hop spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And let's put them all together
Yeah.
because it's a very diverse spectrum now. So let's get someone who might have this different sort of twang, maybe someone who's not born in Australia, but they have they rap this way. Someone who has this way, and let's put them all together on one bill and just showcase hip hop for what it is.
Yeah, yeah. And it's worked really well. Like, I think people really respond to it. A lot of people feel like, the buttholes can loosen up a little bit, and you do get a little bit more of like, and maybe it's come from our experience at drum and bass parties and stuff and raves of just that slightly more accepting culture. And just sort of like, what have you got, man? Let's have a listen. And it's exciting for a lot of people because generally speaking, most of the people that we put on, it's probably, if not their first gig, it's within their first few gigs.
Mm-hmm.
They maybe haven't worked out their sound yet. They maybe don't know about, like, as I was saying before, like, buy a fucking mic. Like, you rock up and you don't know anything. But if you're an MC or you're a singer, you don't have a microphone. Like, a DJ has to buy all of this equipment. That's really expensive. You've got to buy records. Like, people can't see it. There's a wall of records here. And, there's an investment in it. And I think, for rappers, it's like, and part of the culture, like, you just might be doing it naturally, or rapping with your mates, and then someone says, get up, and you've never owned a mic. You don't know anything about a mic. You don't know the mic that they put in your hand. You don't know there's a difference between mics. But start to learn that. And so that's part of like what the Get Down is. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to hone your craft, and it's an opportunity to get up. And for some people, it might be the only gig they ever do, Hopefully not, but yeah, it could be. So if it is, we want to make it a good experience, give you an opportunity to really like, here's your time on stage. This is the spotlight. In the lead up to the gig, champion you. Put out reels with your music on it. If you don't have a song out yet, Dietz will come. He'll come to your house and he will film you in your lounge room. So we will get your sound out there, and it is something that Dietz is really passionate about. And for me, I've probably grown a bit of an appreciation for that, and sort of seeing the value of just being able to contribute to that.
Yep.
In a slightly arm's length way, because I'm perhaps not as, I'm flaky,
Well, yeah, but obviously Deeds is sitting right there, so it feels awkward to talk about.
We can talk shit about it.
No, but he obviously his heart is in the right place, and he just wants to put people out there and give them the exposure, which is the right way to do it.
Yeah.
And you obviously, like you said, people come up to you and they hit you up. Oh man, like get me on the bill, blah blah blah. I get people all the time message me.
Which is fair
on your
enough.
podcast, right? Like, yeah, but you don't even follow us. You haven't come to any of the gigs. Like, what do you do? And this is what I think. Maybe it's more young people. We're going to sound like some dudes in their 40s right now. But if you want to get on a bill, if you want to get on a podcast, if you want to do something, then support and at least do, like, that's what people need to do, man.
The best way to get involved in something is to be there.
Correct.
So anyone who's into journalism or something, and they're like, oh, I really want to get into sports writing or something. It's like, what event did you go to this weekend? I didn't go to anything. Yeah, well, you need to go to the local sport. You need to go to local footy. Then you need to go to the soccer game that's down the road. And then there's a girls' match over here. And then there's basketball on an MSAC. You need to go to all this stuff, start talking to people.
Immerse
and
yourself.
Then go to the professional games that are on at night when you can. Try to, if you can't afford it, get some free ticket. Find a way. Because the best way to be a reporter is to be there. And the best way to be a performer is to be there.
Correct, man. And I took this from the early days of myself DJing. It's like, I read a book about DJing, right? And it said, get a job in a nightclub because at some stage the dude who's going to play the first set's not going to turn up.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And that stuff is spot on, right? It's fucking real because it does happen.
That is career advice for every industry.
Yeah, just get in there and just do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spot on. So tell us about this next Get Down that's coming up on the 27th. Who is playing? What are you excited about? What's happening?
So we've got a good one. We've got that kid Mars, who has performed at the Get Down before and smashed it. Had no idea who he was at the time. I think it was the Get Down second or third birthday, something like that. Also at Horse Bazaar, I remember him getting up and Deets being really excited about him. And yeah, man, he just smashed it. It was really good vibe, good artist, good music, but really positive vibes. So I'm excited to see him again. Obviously, since however many years ago it was, he's put out a lot of music and sort of made a bit of a name for himself. So maybe not typically the sort of person that we would have on, but being part of the family, it's good to have him come back.
Is it always about just giving a platform for younger people, for newer artists? Is that generally the idea?
That's generally the idea, but also, I mean, for myself, like I perform with about half of them. So it's also, having a lineup of some established stuff because people can see that and see what you do and go, all right, cool, like maybe I want to do this. But also it's just about creating a lineup and stuff. And sometimes you just don't want a full lineup of all people that have never performed before because it's maybe not going to be a good product, So it's a mix.
It's a balancing point.
It is, but we've also always had key people there. There's been heavy involvement from someone like Motley, Infa Jones. Key people who are definitely more established than I am in the local hip hop scene, being there and sort of being key things because some people will come along just because they're playing, and then they'll see this other stuff and you're just like, oh, cool, so it's another way of bringing people in because it's not just about people having their first performance, but also maybe exposing people to some other cool shit that's out there.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. Other people on the line are really good. I'm excited to see what Knowledge is doing. We've got often involved just visual artists and stuff. We've had live painters and stuff at gigs and all of that. So yeah, obviously he did the flyer art, which is pretty dope, and I'm keen to see what else does. And yeah, so I think it's going to be a really good night. I'm excited to be performing. We haven't performed for a little while. And so, yeah, I've got a couple of new tracks that I want to try out on people. One that we did today. So that's the first time that I've performed that in public, so to speak, if you want to call this public.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you just got to test shit out to see if it's any good. So good feedback from you. Thank you very much.
Good,
and then
man,
the internet's going to flame me. But yeah, so we're just performing a few new tracks. And yeah, looking forward to having a big night at Revs. And I think the late show afterwards might be a couple of mates playing there, so I might jump up and have a few beers and spit some raps. We'll see. I think we're trying to organise. I've got a mate over from Tassie. DJ Prest is going to be over from the Beatdown crew. So the Beatdown crew in Tassie and the Get Down crew in Melbourne have to have a little bit of a crossover.
Sounds like a punch on, man.
That's it. So yeah, I don't know. So yeah, we're sort of trying to. I think Spin Effects is trying to get onto Ransom about that, and we'll see. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe it won't. But yeah, so it's going to be a big night. Good night.
For sure, man. So how do people get their tickets, or what do they have to do if they want to get involved?
Show up on the door and pay your money. But otherwise, it's the same. Like I can tell you where to buy the tickets, but just get down tickets at Revolver. If you follow 3000 Podcast, then you are.
I'll put the links in the shit.
Yeah, it's there.
And I think
links in bio,
all that sort of stuff. Union Heights is involved as well, so that's literally across the road. Yeah. So you can get down there. You can say hello to Frank. Get down there. Then you can go across the.
Frank's been a really big supporter of what we do. Like obviously we sort of Deets has helped out with a couple of gigs that Frank's done as well. But Frank has always been a supporter of that sort of stuff, and even some other non-get down gigs and drum and bass stuff that put on earlier at Revs. He's always supporting local stuff, and happy to put a poster up, and doesn't ask for anything. So really good to have Union Heights on board. We'll have heaps of giveaways. Obviously, 3000's a sponsor. We've got other sponsors, Crooks, and I'm going to forget someone, but we've always got heaps of giveaways and stuff. And where sponsors can't help out with things like promo or helping with the costs of something, people are always really willing to give their time, or to victims of ink are contributing. So you might rock up, see your first hip hop gig, get your first tattoo the next week.
Got my second ever tattoo at Victims of Ink, man.
And look at you now.
A long time ago. That was when they were in Port Melbourne. That was a long time ago. Yeah. Man, it sounds awesome, and I'll endeavour to be down there. And I think what you guys are doing is awesome, and the way that you bring together newer hip hop and traditional hip hop, but also like give people a platform that probably don't have one, and maybe they feel like they might be a little bit like MC Wasp and are a round peg in a square hole. It's good for them to have a home, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And we also accept the round pegs in the round hole, you know, so
We'll put pegs in any holes that you can fit them.
yeah. So, you know, so we really are very accepting. And, you know, as I was, you know, to go right back to the start, like Dietz is has a really broad appreciation of art in general, and, you know, is an excellent curator of sounds. And it's not just Melbourne people, as you said, it's people from other places. We've had people from LA perform. So yeah, it's always guaranteed to be a good mix, even if it's a bit unconventional.
Yeah, man. What with that? The Get Down at Revs, July 27, Saturday. Do it.
Words.
MC Wasp, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate you coming down here. It's been awesome.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
We've done almost 2 hours, but if there's anything we've missed, it goes so quick.
It's a life story, man.
Even when you're sitting there, does it go quick?
Yeah.
An hour 50, so
He's
not
heard of it
quite,
before.
not quite an hour and 2 hours, but an hour 50.